If you've got a problem with surface water pooling up someplace in your yard or property and you want to learn how to deal with it, I'm going to show you how I solved my own drainage issue for under $100 with an easy-to-use system, and I'm going to use some products that you may never have seen before, but that's the key. Once you know the components, you can build this thing any way you want. Of course, the project starts with water. Now here in New Hampshire, we do get a lot of rain. Now during last month, we got slammed. We had almost 4 inches of rain in 1 month. Here was the result. Along my dirt driveway, you can see a ton of water pooled up. And this was 4 days after the rain had stopped. But this isn't the problem. What was running underneath the wall would eventually go all the way down my driveway, almost 1,000 feet from this point, and it was starting to eat away at the dirt. And these little crevices will expand eventually into something like the Grand Canyon. Now here, I did this small test. I essentially just dug a little channel along the driveway, starting at the point where I believed the water was coming in. And my hunch was correct. You can see this water is simply flowing right through that channel in the ground, and eventually it will drain that little pond. Remember, the key is getting the water to go underneath my driveway and not across and down it. You can't really tell here, but there's a major elevation, so if I get it to the other side of the driveway, the water will continue to run down the hill. But the same situation can apply in your yard. You might need to get the water underneath your lawn, and the way to do it is to use this very inexpensive system. Now, I should say nothing in this video is sponsored. This is just simply a great find. This is made by the company called NDS, and it's called Speedy Basin. Now by itself, this thing costs $12, so it's like a little trash can, but this port is key. With all drains, of course, you need to carry the water away. I'm going to use this 4-inch PVC pipe. Now I know some of you right now are flipping out saying this is a horrible choice, but if you watch the rest of this video, you'll understand exactly why I'm picking this. A very popular way is of course to use drain pipe, and that same Speedy Basin will connect directly to this pipe, eliminating a lot of couplers and other adapters that you might need if you did it another way. Using these basins is super easy. Now in the case of PVC, they just simply snap on. You can use the sealing tape if you want, but you really don't need to. Once it's buried, it'll hold itself in position. Now of course you'll want some type of a grate for the surface to block things like leaves and sticks. This one is called an atrium cover, and that's perfect if you have, say, a garden bed where there's lots of debris. This flat cover can actually be driven on. It's very strong. I'm doing a dry fit of the system so you can see exactly how it gets installed. It's about 20 feet long, so I'll need to connect 2 sections of PVC pipe. If you want to move some water somewhere on, say, your lawn, this is what these grates will look like installed. The low profile grate really isn't noticeable, and the atrium grate would do really well on the edge of your lawn or a garden bed where you wouldn't need to worry about running it over, hitting it with a lawnmower. But here's my favorite part of this system that really makes it genius. If you install one of these, what are the chances that you will get the depth exactly right? Well, it's probably not very good. This system can actually be connected to a standard piece of 6-inch drain pipe. That means this system is flexible. You can cut that pipe to the exact length you want. But this is really important on some place like a lawn or my dirt driveway, because once I install this, the level or height of my driveway will change over time. As I get dirt delivered, different things happen, it wears down. I can actually adjust the height of the drain. This little piece of pipe only sells for $8, so you're not spending a lot of money here to potentially solve a huge drainage issue. This is the #1 reason to use these speedy drains as opposed to their larger systems. The larger ones cannot be extended very easily, certainly not like this, and they cost sometimes 10 times as much. Here are the materials I'm going to use for the job. In this case, 2 10-foot pieces of PVC pipe, schedule 40. If you're installing this on a lawn, the flexible stuff is fine, but under a driveway, I want the strongest pipe available, and that is going to be the thick-walled schedule 40 stuff you can get at any hardware store. I'll also need a coupler to put the 2 pieces together, and I will be installing 6 of these exact systems along my driveway, so I will be using some heavy equipment to make this a bit easier. I'm also going to be doing microtrenching. This thing is made by a company called Rhinox. They make awesome buckets and blades for excavators and different types of tractor equipment, and in this case, I'm using a 3-inch microtrencher. Now my driveway is almost as hard as concrete. This dirt has been compacted for years, so I want to disturb as little as possible, and even though this one is only 3 inches, I'll simply scrape the sides a little bit to make that hole a perfect 4 inches. You also may have noticed the red arrows on the driveway. That's because I did the right thing and I called dig safe before I started this. I'm also making another mistake. I'm doing all this digging while the ground is still wet and water is literally pouring in. But unfortunately, this is when I had the machine, so the job needs to get done. I'm starting with the larger hole to dig the space for the basin. Once I get this hole cleared, I'll do a test fit on the basin just to kind of see how things line up. Next, I'll drop the main bucket and I'll attach the Rhinox Microtrenching blade. Now this thing looks pretty freaky, but it is perfect for doing this job. Those holes on the side are actually indicators so you have an idea of depth. This is perfect for somebody like me who's not a professional excavator, so that the trench is dug to an even depth. This micro-trenching bucket is going to be perfect for doing an electrical conduit I've got planned later this summer for doing a solar install. If you're doing this drain on your lawn, you really wouldn't need to rent the trencher unless you have super compacted dirt. But here in the driveway, as I dug this, it was fighting me the entire way. And after some amount of hand digging to just clean up the trench, I finally got to break through the wall, and as you can see, this water is still waiting to get through. Next, I need to glue together those two pieces of PVC pipe. I'll simply apply it to one side, put the fitting in place, and you really need to press this stuff in. This pipe is heavy, and the fittings kind of push back at you when you glue them, so I'm using my truck as a kind of brace to push against them while the glue sets up. Next, I snap that basin on the end of the PVC and set the entire thing in the hole. I'm using PVC pipe Schedule 40 because it is simply the strongest pipe available. There is also a drain pipe, a Schedule 35, that is very popular because it is considered to be more flexible. And in a lawn, that stuff would be perfect, but on a driveway, I want the strongest pipe I can get. And another channel, Andrew Camarada, did a test to actually prove this, and he showed that Schedule 40 is exactly how it appears. It's a thicker, heavier pipe, and it will simply take more weight. With that basin set at a reasonably low position, I'm ready to begin filling in the hole. And remember, once you backfill the hole, all of this will be locked in. You don't need to put any glue on this extension pipe unless you're absolutely certain the height of your driveway or area will never change. And I can compact it down using the tracks on the excavator simply by driving back and forth. Everything covered up, it's time to remove the extension pipe. As it turns out, the basin is pretty much the right height for this installation the way it is today. But down the road, when I have more dirt, I will definitely be using extra pipe to bring the drain height up. And this drain is already doing its job. Now obviously it'd be perfect if the water wasn't here, but that just isn't life. Water is going to end up in places that you don't always want it. Using a system that in total cost me under $100 just solved an issue that was wiping out huge parts of my driveway, and if left unchecked, it would have caused massive damage over time that would have cost a lot more in replacement fill and gravel. I really expect this pipe will hold up, and in fact a day after this install, I unexpectedly got a 16-wheeler here that drove right over the area, and I checked the pipe with a camera and there were no problems whatsoever. I'll be repeating this same installation about 6 times along my driveway because there are other sections where water is pooling up as well, but this was the most important one. If you've got other ideas, things you would do differently, please leave me a comment below, or if you've used this system yourself, I'd love to hear your experience.